let's talk about grimdark. Now, I have absolutely nothing against grimdark fanfiction. The violence and intense emotions associated with the genre are disturbing, shocking, immoral, and just so much fun. It's like reading Halloween. Sure, it's gory and gross, and you can get an apple or granola bar once in a while, but sometimes you get that full-size candy bar, chock full of character development and intense drama, and your whole night is made. However, if not done correctly, fics can seem forced and only written for the violence and shock value instead of for a plot or characters. Bad grimdark fics are kinda like a bad Michael Bay movie. Sure, the characters are lackluster and underdeveloped and the plot is almost non-existent, but hey, things are exploding, so there's an audience. One fanfic that doesn't really fall under either of these categories is Rainbow Factory. Now, keep in mind here, I'm not going to be referring to the sequels in this video. This is about Rainbow Factory and Rainbow Factory alone. Even so, the sequels wouldn't really patch up any of the issues in the fic that I'll bring up soon enough. But where did this fic even come from in the first place? Rainbow Factory started off as a song by The Wooden Toaster, which goes by the same name. Which is kind of weird, actually. A fanfiction based off a song? I've seen fanfictions based off of movies, shows, art, podcasts, and even a coffee commercial, but a song? It's not something that happens very often. Rainbow Factory, the song, doesn't even have that many words in it. About half the song is violin and synth instrumental. However, in this case, it really does work. The unique story of a dark secret behind the innocent weather factory in Cloudsdale is something that could easily be turned into a fanfic. The lack of any kind of flowing narrative in the song itself also gave fanfiction writers, or writer in this case, space to develop their own ideas and create a complex plot around the ideas presented, but not elaborated on, in the song. So this is a pretty unique situation. Even with its unusual conception, I used to think this fic was the best thing ever. It was the second fanfiction I had ever read, and I thought it was fantastic. Just wow, so much blood and violence and intense character and world development and Rainbow Dash Scootaloo drama, it was great. But looking back, it hasn't really aged very well. Now, I've read more fanfictions than you can shake a stick at, and based off of every other grimdark fanfiction I've read, Rainbow Factory isn't that bad. It's no Agony in Pink, I assure you. It has suspense, violence that isn't that overdone, characters, and a plot. Note how, unfortunately, I don't say interesting characters. Let's take a look at our main character, Scootaloo. As you already know, Scootaloo is already an established character in MLP. She's part of the CMC and has a canon sister/mentor relationship with Rainbow Dash. However, in August 2011, during the hiatus between Season 1 and Season 2, when Rainbow Factory was written, Scootaloo was only in 3 episodes prior to that point. Call of the Cutie Mark Chronicles, and The Showstoppers. This supplied the whole Scootaloo admiring Rainbow Dash thing, but there isn't any Sleepless in Ponyville to really develop Artie's and Scoot's relationship on a complex level. There's the mentioning of Artie being Scootaloo's mentor prior to her test in the fic. However, there isn't much to go on with Scootaloo as a character yet. Sure, she flies and loves flying, but she doesn't even have a cutie mark. Scootaloo is kind of on the level of a generic OC in this. You want her to live, but she doesn't really offer anything unique or jarring because of the lack of canon material for Aurora Dawn to go off of at this point in the series. Speaking of OCs and Aurora Dawn, let's look at our supporting cast. Orion Solstice is Scootaloo's love interest and flight school friend that helps get Scootaloo into her predicament in the first place. He fails the flight test when he goes to help Aurora Dawn, a filly that dislocated a wing after failing to recover from the free-falling portion of the test. Aurora and Orion aren't really bad characters. However, they tend to fall victim to cliches. Love interest plot at the last second between Scoots and Orion felt pretty forced. The dramatic admittance of love right before death is kind of weird. To be fair, there's hinting at possible chemistry prior to Orion's death, but it's pretty downplayed and wouldn't affect the plot at all if it wasn't there. And Aurora, honestly, her whole personality is a cliche. The automatic friend, the loyal sacrificer, the cute, wickle, shy, injured girl that tugs at everybody's heartstrings. While it made a few people cry a manly tear when she stood up to Rainbow Dash with her love conquers all evil stance and her all meeting of friends is good, But it's just too saccharine for me. Especially for a grimdark fic, and especially for a filly in this kind of situation. No one could be this calm and sweet in the Rainbow Factory, especially in the midst of a rebellion for their lives. It's like she's saying goodbye to Scoots as she departs on a summer trip to Italy, not our final goodbyes to her in a chaotic murder industry line. Her whole personality is just so very boring and cookie-cutter good guy that it makes me sick. And also, should she even have stayed back to defend Scoots from Rainbow Dash at all? Aurora said that she wouldn't be winning any races, but she could fly if she needed to Orion as they first enter the factory. But suddenly she can't fly when she has the chance to escape with Scootaloo? And Scoots just kind of leaves her there. I mean, I know she was trying to get out of there ASAP to save her own life, but both fillies could have gained a head start on RD if they didn't do the whole sappy goodbye bit and just got out of there. Speaking of Scootaloo's escape, where did she even get out from? The amount of doors and exits in the theater room are inconsistent at best. At first, it's described that the theater room has 2 doors, one on each end of a hall of scaffolding. Alright, this sounds like a reasonable layout. A place for employees, but too far for any of the fillies to get to. Then it said that all the doors were locked except for the one on the scaffolding when Scootaloo bolts for escape. What? There's 2 doors, not 5, and there's 2 doors on the scaffolding, not just 1. And where does this magical event appear from that Scootaloo re-enters the theater room from? There's never any mention of event before that point. I would consider it a nitpick if it didn't result in her death. So, Rainbow Factory. While it isn't terrible, it isn't really that good in the character department. Well, I know I've just been moaning about the minor problems in the fic. There's still a lot of suspense in there. The Rainbow Dash Scoots chase is pretty terrifying. I remember on my first reading, me just straining on the edge of my seat and hoping that Scoots would make it out okay. And her eventual downfall was devastating if you don't see it coming. Orion's death is still pretty dramatic, even if the spontaneous love plot took away some of the effect. Rainbow Dash's mental breakdown is also horrifying, as everyone's favorite weather pony slowly degenerates into this heaving, blood-hungry monster that craves nothing more than the slaughter of fillies. Yet the subconscious yearning and fighting for something more than murder is unsettling. All in all, I rate it 7 out of 10. If you haven't read it yet, read it when you can. It's still a great story, and shouldn't be passed up. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. I know there were a few audio problems, but they'll be fixed next time around. If you want to request a fanfiction for me to review, leave a comment, or leave an ask on my Tumblr. Happy Winter Solstice, and I'll see you next time.